Assalamualaikum. Today we are from Group Toyota would like to present about activity-based costing ABC and the related costing system based on the journal article that we have studied. Before we proceed, I would like to introduce myself and my group member. I am Nur Hidayah binti Kamaruzaman. Next to me, Munira Haraha binti Ali Ruman, Siti Nur Fatihah binti Izha, and Nur Ashikin binti Sabir. Alright, let me start our presentation with traditional costing system. Traditional costing system is known as the most fundamental method, which is utilize only one cost driver for allocating overhead and cause the obtained cost price to have a great difference with the real cost price. In this system, the cost of direct material and direct payment are directly allocated to the production. Productive and non-productive overhead have also been considered as direct costs and allocated to production by using the pre-assigned overhead rate. In traditional costing system, based on the volume of cost price, each product consists of the sum of the cost of direct material, direct labor, and the allocated overhead. Traditional costing system not consider two important factors, which is irrelevant cost of the product unit and the variety of products. So it doesn't give exact information about the cost price of products and services to decision makers or to manager to make decision. In traditional costing system, the cost price of product is calculated as follows. Step 1. Determine the basis for allocating overhead or indirect cost. For example, direct labor cost, direct labor hours, or machine hours. Step 2. Allocating overhead cost to product or services. By using this formula, which is predetermined overhead rate equal to the total estimated overhead divided by allocation base. Step 3. Apply overhead throughout the period using the actual amount of allocation base and the allocating overhead rate calculated in step 2 by using this formula, which is cost of the product equal to POR times the actual amount of allocation base. Today, in the present social and economic industry, paying attention to productivity and efficiency is considered as a necessity. Taking into consideration the great change in technology and presenting new methods in the early 1980s, organizations found out that they should increase the quality while decreasing the cost to survive. This subject and the existing shortcoming in traditional costing system made them revise their accounting and managerial methods. So there are some shortcomings of the traditional costing system. The first one is the lack of preparation exact information about cost price and other necessary information for decision making. Traditional system mainly divide the existing costs in organization into two groups, which is direct costs and periodic costs. But they only consider the direct cost in calculating the cost price. But in making decisions, they need to use both of them. Therefore, based on traditional methods, analysis of the improvement of activity and methods for decreasing the cost won't be possible. Second, traditional system only consider the advantages obtained from changing the processes and the improvement of method as saving money in labor cost. Therefore, they don't show the improvement of function in operational processes. Last but not least, traditional costing systems do not show the real information about operational process and cost. This system only considers the costs which are easily identifiable in calculating the cost price, and indirect costs don't play any roles in calculating cost price. Because of this shortcoming, traditional costing system was replaced by activity-based costing. Alright, now we will see the difference between traditional costing system and activity-based costing by three factors, which are primary focus, application, and management use. For primary focus, traditional costing system uses identical cost driver for different activities, but for ABC uses multiple cost drivers for multiple activities. For the application, traditional costing method is easy to implement as a single cost driver is set for all activities and overheads are simply divided into fixed and variable overhead. ABC is difficult to implement because it involves choosing a suitable basis of absorption and absorbing overheads on that same basis, is a complicated and time-consuming exercise. Additionally, in some cases, it becomes difficult to determine a proper basis for the allocation of an activity. And the last one is management use. For traditional costing system, the value cannot be used in a report of external reporting because the value is not accurate. But for ABC, the value can be used in the external financial statement. So to be concluded, traditional costing system was replaced by activity-based costing system so that the system could remove the existing faults in the traditional costing system. Next, I will let Munira to present about activity-based costing.
I'm Munira Harhab binti Airuman. I represent activity-based costing ABC. ABC is an accounting method that used to trace costs to a project or process of an organization. History of ABC. In late 1960 and early 1970, a country writer pointed to the relationship between activity and cost, but in 1980, this relationship was focused on more biodiversity and occupational center because of reflection also weakness or shortcoming in common accounting system. The consideration was mainly on the basis of three basic structure. First structure, a new change in the world which occurred in different countries, especially in Japan, to introduce modern technology. Second structure, the conceptual or philosophy of many company managers a lot to decrease the cost. A third structure, explain new product iterations, various technology role, and new viewpoint of manager. Activity-based costing, Cooper and Kaplan along with Johnson in 1980 have an important role in reflecting the shortcoming of management account system in given exact cost information. According to Corking theory, the reason why ABC come to existing result from three factors. First, structure change of the company cost price. Two, reciprocal function behavior inside the trade unit. Three, the appearance of related data based on also the language of the fourth generation which made the quick organizing of database. In this system, there are three basic parts. Sources, activity on the cost object is a structure of ABC. ABC have two stages which result in allocating overhead costs to project or production service. First stage, identify the main activity and resources, allocating the overhead cost to be identified activity, recognizing the cost driver related to each activity after allocating overhead cost to accommodate cost of activity. Second stage, the cost of construction overhead to each activity as to the degree of this cost driver in every production line in allocated. ABC did not assign cost rightly to the product but assigned to the activity performed by the company. The cost of the product are collected by determining how much each product use each activity. Features of ABC. Therefore, first, pay attention to the new operational phenomena, also the effect of the dominant technology on the existing situation. Two, the kind of price level and the number of price storage. Third, does not improve tracing the direct cost but increase carry and allocating indirect costs that aid to stay overhead costs. For the identify the remove the activity which cause the increase of the cost without making any increased value for the customer. Shortcoming of ABC, the cost of interviewing and analyzing people viewpoint for the early model of ABC, high cost of subjective time allocation and the difficulty of updating, high cost of the number of activity center and also costing factor, also the necessity of allocating some cost on the basis of volume-based contract norm. The last slide was comparison ABC versus time-driven ABC. We have six comparing factor. The first factor, kind of driver for cost allocation for ABC. Transaction drivers such as the number of initiation time, the time-driven activity-based costing, time driver like time needed for initiation activity. The second factor, the number of time driver. For ABC, one driver is only used with each activity. For TD ABC, infinite driver can be used with each activity. The third factor, model accuracy. For ABC, the model does not consider all activity feature and it affects the costing accuracy. But for TD ABC, the model considers activity feature in allocation time efficiently. Therefore, it has enough accuracy. System dimension was the fourth factor. For ABC, every different activity require using a new activity. But for TD ABC, for each activity, a time equation is used which has all activity feature. For model updating, fifth factor, calculator. For ABC, the model has many details and it is time consuming to be updated. For TD-ABC, the model has less detail and it is easy to be updated. The last factor, the ability to calculate unused capacity. For ABC, the model cannot calculate the unused capacity, but for TD-ABC, the model can calculate the unused capacity. That's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So here I want to present about time-driven activity-based costing. The history of the time-driven activity-based costing is the origin of TD-ABC dates back to 1997. This model was used by Steven Anderson and his company as Acron System. Before 2001, the company of Acron System introduced this model with the name of activity-based of transaction. In 2001, Kaplan joined the board of directors of Acron company and cooperate in developing this procedure. The result of this cooperation was to present the theory of time-driven activity-based costing with simplified costing process by omitting staff, interview, stage, and allocation the source cost to activities. Next, about time-driven activity-based costing. First, its performing method is very different from performing stage of common method of activity-based costing. Second, determine the cost resource based on time equation and allocate them to activity and operation performed directly and automatically. Next, identify the capacity of each department or process and allocate the cost of this capacity of resource group over the cost object based on the time required to perform an activity. Next, prepare comprehensive report of profit and loss for the most complex organization. And the last one, the simplicity of this model result from the fact that only two parameters of the Berua should be evaluated. First, the cost rate of each capacity unit. Second, the using rate of capacity unit different for each driver. Okay, to activity-based costing have three stages. First stage, let's identify the resource group which perform the activity. Second, evaluating the cost of each resource group. Third, evaluating the practical capacity of each resource group. And the last one, capacity, the cost of each supply capacity unit for each resource group through dividing the total cost of each resource. Second stage, identify the factor that affect the time of doing each activity. Second, making the equation which dependence of the time of doing the activity to all agents. The third one is multiplying the cost of each supply capacity unit of each group of resource by the time of doing activity. Okay, the advantage is first, constructing an exact model is made quicker and easier. Second, having a good confirming with the data which are available in enterprise resource planning system. Third one is move the cost to activity and order by using the characteristic of order, process, supplier, and customer. Next, it can be used monthly. And it's great transparency in using the capacity and proficiency of process, that is to say it determines the extra capacity. Next is anticipate the demand rate of necessary resource and provide the possible budgeting for capacity resource based on anticipated order rate for the companies. Next is confirm to the existing model using software and technology of information bank easily. It's possible to maintain a quick and less expensive model. It's provide clear information for user in identifying the difficulty originally. And the last one is used in every industry or company with different complexity about customer, product, units, and producer. And then this advantage is first, correct and reliable driver are not available. Second, the difference in time driver. When time driver for each transaction are available, TD-ABC can be used calculating to each case separately. Third, collecting and updating data. It is said repeatedly that TD-ABC removes the needs to researching and collecting data, but it's not true. And the last one, data value. Activity costing will create separately, and by using TD-ABC, is create volume of data quickly and cause the management analysis and report preparation requiring great type, station, and report analyzing instrument to become very powerful. And the last one, the comparison between TD-ABC and performance-focused activity-based costing. So we look at kind of driver for allocation. For PFABC driver cost the transaction and order using specific characteristic of particular order, process, supplier, and customer. While TDABC time driver like time needed for initiation activity. Model accuracy. The model can be made more accurate by using time duration driver for PFABC. Meanwhile, TDABC, the model consider activity factor in allocation time efficiency, therefore, it has enough accuracy. And the last one, the ability to calculate unused capacity. For PFABC, the model can calculate the unused capacity determined by the difference between applied and budgeted committed resource. TDABC, the model can calculate the unused capacity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nur Ashikimiti Sabir, one of the group members of Group Toyota. So today I'm going to present about the performance-focused activity-based costing, which is one of the costing system that calculate the cost of price of goods and services. So this is the content of my presentation today that I'm going to talk about, which is a story of PFABC, advantages and disadvantages of using PFABC, and the 9 process on how to use this method. So, what is actually focused activity-based costing? For your information, managers should always administer two separate accounting systems, which is one to determine the product's expenses and another one is to control and assess the performance. So, in order to maintain these two systems, the management has to account to high expenses and problems. So that's why in 2009, Dr. Namazi introduced the third generation of costing called performance-focused activity-based costing, PFABC, to account for removing the most important problem due to time-driven activity costs. What is the advantages of using this method? First of all, for performance monitoring, management adopt PFABC to identify important cost variances such as rate, efficiency, and production volume variances. And another one is to solve some allocation problems in TDABC system. PFABC determines actual cost for each activity separately and accurately by considering the appropriate resources and cost driver that need no limited time. As we know, one of the weakness of time driven is that it need limited time. But for this method, we no need to worry about the limited time. And the last one is to ease the operation of the ABC and TDABC system. PFABC identifies each important activity explicitly and mapping the cost of resources to relevant activities. And PFABC also more complete model compared to the ABC and TDABC because it considers multiple relevant elements for each standard operation. So then what is the advantage of using this method? First of all, PFABC requires the application of work measurement technique to determine the standard data. So it also needs more money and time. And the second one, PFABC requires collecting accurate and actual data about the resources, activities, and their behavior. The corporation always needs the relevant information system. And then the implementation process of PFABC must be analyzed in terms of its potential cost and the benefits. And the fourth one is the PFABC must be reviewed periodically to see if any changes and revision is warranted. So this also consumes a lot of time and increase cost because we have to check the PFABC every time. For example, we have to review it at the end of the month. Okay, so this is the 9 process of using PFABC. First of all, we have to identify the major activities because the nature and behavior of cost for each activity is usually different from other activities, right? So it is also one of the major components of ABC which should be maintained. Okay, the second one is we have to identify the actual resources needed for each activity because for this step, the staff can recognize the type and amount of resources needed for each activity based on the behavior data system and especially accounting data system. The third step is we have to determine the actual rate of each activity resources, meaning that we have to determine the actual rate of each activity and ABC is determined regarding the time percentage of each activity carried out by the staff. So in PFABC, the actual rates of course are determined separately for each activity. Okay, and then the next is that we have to determine the cost of each activity, mean that PFABC determines the cost of activity regarding the behavior of cost resources. For example, we have flexible resources and another one we have the promised cost. And next, we have to calculate the standard rate of activity. In this step, standard rate of activity should be estimated using regression analysis or time sequential models. And then we have to calculate activity price deviation. This step only available in the PFABC method because it is not common in the ABC or in the TDBAC. And then the next one, we have to calculate the cost of activity implemented, determining the cost standard amount of resources consumed in the administrating and activity is the first thing, the flexible resources. And then we have to calculate the value deviation. And then also we have to calculate the profitability of each activity. Means that resources efficiency can be described as the efficiency of an activity resulted from price deviation and motivation. So that's all for today that we have to know about the performance focused activity based costing. Thank you for listening.